Oh, what's going on, people? My name is Batman, and I was surprised to hear that EA is releasing both Battlefield 1 and Titanfall in roughly the same launch window this fall. Typically, you don't see companies release such similar products that are trying to appeal to the same demographics in the same market at the same time in the same sales quarter, because then their products are essentially competing against each other. This is known in marketing as cannibalization, which refers to a reduction in sales volume, sales revenue, or market share of one product as a result of the introduction of a new product by the same producer. The fall window release is already the most competitive time of the year for new games. It's right before Christmas when a million new titles are launching. You already have the two biggest shooter titles in the industry, both Battlefield and COD, launching right now, and that means much stiffer competition for Titanfall than it would face if it launched around the middle of next year, which is the other sort of big window, right after tax returns. Where we saw games like Division and Overwatch and, way back in the day, the original Titanfall release. Now, this is also why I wasn't surprised by the way Activision decided to bundle the COD 4 remaster with Infinite Warfare, because if they had released those titles separately, they would have faced severe market cannibalization. You know, how many people would have bought the $30 COD 4 remaster instead of the $60 new game, right? The games would be so incredibly similar. The COD 4 remaster sold by itself would mean they literally, spent money building this product whose only accomplishment would be to hurt their overall sales and profits. By peeling away millions of $60 purchases from the main title, which undoubtedly had a disproportionately larger amount of time and resources poured into it, and shifting those sales over to $30 sales. So you spend millions of dollars and your only return on investment would be a further loss of many more millions of dollars. You would be a pretty shitty CEO to pull that off. Now, that's not to try and defend the way they did the COD 4 remaster bundle strategy. I know a lot of people are understandably upset about that. Me personally, I wish they'd done what the MCC did, a Modern Warfare collection, a Black Ops collection. But then, of course, the question would be, does a remaster collection sell as well as a brand new title? And the truth is, the COD 4 remaster bundle is really the only thing keeping COD in contention this year. Without the inclusion of COD 4, I really think they would be in deep shit this year, and they kind of still are. So on the EA side of things, undoubtedly there are going to be plenty of people who have to choose between Battlefield or Titanfall, which is going to dampen the sales of both. I suspect Titanfall would bear the brunt of sales volume loss just because Battlefield is so much more popular. And obviously these games are very different, but they're both AAA titles in the same genre. They are competing against each other at the same time as much as they're competing against COD, you know what I mean? And I suspect competing against COD is the whole reason they're doing this. EA smells blood. COD is weak, very weak, and EA is hoping to strike a finishing blow. Two possible strategies for intentional cannibalization are, and I quote, that a company wants to increase its market share and is taking a gamble that introducing the new product will harm other competitors more than the company itself, or secondly, the company may believe that the new product will sell better than the first, or will sell to a different sort of buyer. I suspect the decision to release Titanfall this early alongside Battlefield is an attempt by EA to kind of kick COD while it's down, hurt its market share, hurt its profits, and make COD's path going forward that much more difficult. Titanfall squeezes COD even further, competing directly for COD's core audience. Whenever I'm critical of Call of Duty for prioritizing casual gameplay and compressing the skill gap, something I'll hear a lot is, hey, be snobbing. Some of us just prefer the casual setting of COD and being able to lay back and mindlessly shoot at people without having to learn anything or sweat. And look, to an extent, I totally understand this argument. What I always used to say is that Battlefield is like a novel and COD is like a comic book. Each one has their strengths and weaknesses. The advantage of a novel is that it lets you explore a variety of complex subjects in depth, with the downside being that it requires a significant amount of mental energy to read, and a lot of people are understandably not in the mood to exert more mental energy after a long, hard day at school where they already used every bit of mental stamina they have not to take a stapler to their teacher's face. The advantage of a comic is, hey, you get out of school, you got a joint and a canteen of vodka in your backpack for the walk home. Faded by the time you walk in the door, you can still read the comic book, okay? It's very accessible. You kick back and relax with the comic book after another super shitty day of school. But the catch is, because comic books rely so heavily on pictures as their primary storytelling mechanism, they're rarely able to explore the complex abstract stuff. And hey, maybe you need to explore that kind of stuff. Maybe you need some insight as to why you were so clearly miserable, even though you're doing exactly what all the grown-ups always used to say you're supposed to do. But regardless, everyone is going to have some days they want something deeper and more interesting, and some days they just want some simpler and more laid-back escapism. In theory, Call of Duty and Battlefield each have their strengths and weaknesses and appeal to different types of players for different reasons and at different times. To an extent, it is apples and oranges, but I don't think that's a fair argument for defending the present state of Call of Duty. This is how I used to feel about the matchup between COD and Battlefield back during COD 4 and even MW2, but things have changed. Call of Duty has intentionally and aggressively dumbed down to the extent that it's no longer on par with comic books. Comic books at least have significant amounts of dialogue and can still explore complex concepts. No, nowadays COD is much closer to a porno mag. It's about effortless, instant gratification. You don't even have to know how to read to enjoy the porno mag. You don't have to know how to play games to enjoy Call of Duty. And a big part of the reason that COD as a franchise has remained so commercially dominant even while its fan base remains so consistently unsatisfied is that very few other FPS multiplayer titles are able to offer that same comic book style gameplay. Several franchises have taken a shot at it, but they failed miserably. So, I recognize, and I think publishers and developers recognize as well, that plenty of people would prefer a more casual setting than what Battlefield usually provides. And in fact, I prefer that Battlefield doesn't try to provide that casual setting or appeal to that kind of audience. But you still have that casual audience, and past sales data would suggest that Battlefield has trouble winning that crowd over, especially this year's Battlefield 1 takes the franchise in a decidedly less casual direction. And that's where Titanfall comes in. Developed by the same people that built COD 4 and the other major COD titles that put the franchise on top, it is uniquely positioned to not only compete with COD, but compete for that same casual audience that is seemingly adverse to picking up Battlefield. Does that mean that Titanfall will outsell COD? Of course not. And by hurting COD sales, it can give Battlefield a better chance to be the #1 bestseller this year, right? And that would be a huge coup, particularly because you have to realize that these companies are always competing for investors in the stock market, right? More investors means more money to play with, which means more power in the marketplace. This is the main reason game publishers are always trying to put the rosiest spin on bad news. Like, remember Activision's bullshit announcement after that trailer got ass-fisted? They were like, user engagement is through the roof this year. Yeah, very negative user engagement, but whatever. They're trying to spin it so that investors don't jump ship, and so as to entice future investors into choosing them over EA. And of course it goes both ways, but Activision has always had a huge leg up in being able to say that we have the best-selling game every year. If EA could strip them of that talking point, it would be a huge blow to investor confidence, among other things. And that's why I think EA has decided to intentionally engage in market cannibalization by releasing Titanfall and Battlefield so close together. Anyways, the For the Win query of the day is, if you had to choose one game between Titanfall, Battlefield, and the COD bundle, including COD 4, which would you choose and why? Thanks for watching another episode of Marketing 101 with your boy B. Dobbins, signing out.